Watch this next video. This woman is speaking on the perspective of what she faced during law school when she and other women students noticed that the teacher wasn't really taking the women's answers as being correct. Now, she acknowledges that being a white woman, that she still has a privilege that Black women or other women of color don't get. But she does still face sexism, and she recognizes that. So that is very important to this story. So go ahead, watch these next two videos. What I like about it is that it really does, it gives real life examples of what women face as far as the slight microaggressions, just the tendency of people to knock us or not believe us or second guess our intelligence. We face this across the board, and it might be in smaller proportions here and there, but you face it. And you might feel it slightly different depending on if you are white, if you are Black, if you are able-bodied, if you're fit, if you're not so fit, if you have money, if you don't have money. Different people feel the impacts of these slights, but the impacts are there. The impacts can be felt. And it's not even that it's our merit that is being questioned. It is the second guessing us because of who we are or who we were born to be. So there are some of us that know that we have to work 50% harder, 100% harder, just to beat out the most mediocre of white male. We know that it is ingrained in us, and we see it in our day-to-day where we're just doubted simply because we're not white male. Anyways, go ahead, watch this next creator. Jump in the comments and tell me what you think.
This literally happened to me in my first year of law school. We had a male professor who would not accept female students' answers as entirely correct, no matter what. Whenever a female student answered a question, he would say something like, "Oh, you're on the right track, but not quite," or "That's not exactly what I was looking for," or some variation of that. Like, he would never say, "You're flat out wrong," unless you were flat out wrong. But even when you're entirely right, that's what he would say. Whereas when the male students answered and were correct, he would just say, "Yeah, exactly, that's what I'm looking for." I know what you're thinking. That's a big accusation. And at first, I didn't realize it. I was 21 when I started law school. I was still in my happy, shiny, like, ooh, no one's out to get me. No one's trying to make women fail. No one's actively against women succeeding kind of phase. And so I was just really frustrated. I was like, man, why am I not getting the material in this class like I am in my other classes? Like, law school is hard enough. I'm struggling, really frustrated. And I'm like, this class is like not clicking and I'm not getting it. And a slightly older student literally was like, no, he doesn't accept female answers as correct. Anyway, so we all decide to test him so that no one can say that we're just being crazy women. So we get a group of women together and one of our male friends from the class, and we all add each other into a group chat. And we all had our laptops up during class, like it was very normal. And the next time the professor asked a question, a female student raised her hand, answered the question. I typed verbatim what she said into our text group. And the professor says, "Oh yeah, like not quite what I'm looking for, but you're kind of on the right track, whatever. It takes more answers, more female students answer, blah, blah, blah." And then we have our male friend put his hand up and read verbatim what the first female student said out loud. Professor says, "Yes, that's exactly what I'm looking for, exactly right." Come to think of it, this guy might be my villain origin story because I had a rage against sexist things in the past, but this guy was the first one in like a formal academic institution where I was like, oh, someone is actively trying to make me fail because I am a woman. Oh yeah, and he also used to make jokes while describing cases that involved violence against women and domestic violence. Yeah, it's the only time in my life I've ever skipped a class. I'm not joking, high school, university. I'm a pathological nerd. I have never skipped a class in my entire life. I didn't go to his class several times because I just physically couldn't stomach it, which is like so messed up because then this chauvinist asshole is impacting my legal education. I mean, clearly I did fine, but... Part 2 of my sexist law school professor story. I want to start by saying, I'll answer all of your guys' questions. I'm happy to talk about it and let you know what happened next. But unfortunately, this isn't going to be some inspiring, we all banded together, girl power and got him fired story. The truth is that I would handle this situation very differently at my current age and with where I am in my career now. But at the time, we were first-year law students. We were first semester first-year law students. We were scared. We'd worked so hard to get there. Our grades are so important in our first year of law school. And we were being told by everyone that our reputation in the legal community was incredibly important. So going up against this very well-connected professor was not really top of any of our to-do lists, right, wrong, or indifferent. So a lot of people said we should have recorded him. You're not allowed to record a professor unless they give their explicit permission, which, shocker, this guy didn't. So recording him would have meant risking getting kicked out of school, which, again, none of us were interested in. Reporting him, did I escalate to someone later? So a good chunk of us wrote this in his year-end review, and then I did personally speak to him at the end of the year. It was actually kind of funny because I reached out to him right at the end of the year, and then he didn't respond to me for a month. I figured he wasn't going to, but then he did respond, and I had a conversation with him. And one of my female professors later told me that she thinks he was running down the deadline for me to appeal my grade, which actually wasn't what I was doing. I was just trying to have a conversation, but she was like, yeah, he was avoiding you so that you couldn't appeal your grade based on what he said. Anyway, I talked to him and laid out the situation, told him how I felt in his class as a woman, and he basically said oh, sorry you felt that way. It's a coincidence. I obviously don't treat the female students any differently, but I'll be more careful in how I come across in the future, which doesn't help at all and kind of made me think he was just going to be more covert about his sexism and kind of made me feel worse. But I mean, I guess you couldn't say that he didn't listen. None of us said anything when we first caught him in class. Half of us, I think, were just so shocked at the confirmation, and the other half, for all the reasons I mentioned earlier, were like, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole, because we were scared. It sucks. Sucks that that's the situation, but we were scared and didn't feel like we could do anything. I did later tell some of my female professors and someone higher up in the administration, and they basically were like, yeah, he sucks. We know, but he doesn't do anything explicit. We don't have clear proof, and he's really good for the school. He has a great reputation. He's really well regarded, and he's very well qualified for his position. One of my female professors actually told me to consider it a lesson from law school in kind of the realities of the legal profession, which sucks. And finally, I'm not going to tell you who this guy is, and I'm going to ask you all respectfully, please, to not try to find him. Not to protect him, to protect me. I don't want to get hit with a defamation lawsuit, and I still work in this city. It sucks that I'm still kind of afraid to call this guy out, and it sucks that it would have negative impacts on my career more so than it would his. But that's the reality of the situation, and women succeeding is the best revenge against people like this, and someday I hope that I'll be in a position to fully call him out, but I'm just not there yet, and I don't want to be cut short because of this guy. Part 2 for us. Principal, I actually completely agree with you. I, as a middle-class white woman with an advanced degree, do not consider myself to be a particularly oppressed person. But that is the entire point, is that the most privileged among us need to speak out against this system, even if it is working for us. Because I have experienced sexism my entire life, even with all of my privileges, in explicit and implicit ways. And while it has not held me back from achieving the things that I have wanted to thus far in life that I know of, whatever I have experienced is 10 times worse for women of color, for queer women, for women who have not had the good fortune of being born in the same country or zip code as me, who haven't had the same family support as me, who haven't had the same academic resources as me. And that is the point, is that feminism needs to be about all women supporting each other and speaking out against the system, not about privileged white women stepping on the necks of everyone else to take that one spot that's been left aside for a woman. It's about a systemic change.